Let me tell you about a problem that affects all of nutrition science. Using intermittent fasting as a perfect case study, we have a replication crisis. You've probably noticed that one study says intermittent fasting is amazing, the next says it's no better than anything else, then another claims it's harmful, and you're left completely confused about what's actually true. This isn't just about intermittent fasting. This pattern of contradictory findings plagues nutrition research generally, and understanding why will help you navigate diet claims much more effectively. Publication bias is probably the biggest culprit. Journals and media strongly prefer positive, exciting findings over null results. If a researcher runs a study on intermittent fasting and finds dramatic benefits, they'll publish it, it'll get media coverage, and it'll be widely cited. If another researcher runs a similar study and finds no effect, getting that published is much harder. Null results are boring, they don't attract readers or citations. So the published literature becomes systematically biased toward positive findings, creating an illusion that interventions work better than they actually do when you consider all the research that was conducted but never published. Study design heterogeneity makes comparing results nearly impossible. One study defines intermittent fasting as 16-hour daily fasts, another uses alternate day fasting, another uses 5-2 protocol. One study provides all food, another relies on self-reporting. One lasts 2 weeks, another 6 months. One includes only sedentary obese women, another includes active normal weight men. How can we synthesize findings when the interventions, populations, durations, and measurement methods differ so dramatically? We end up comparing apples to oranges and wondering why we get conflicting results. Long-term dietary trials are incredibly difficult to conduct, which is why we have so few of them. They're expensive, people drop out, adherence becomes problematic over time, and researchers move on to other projects. Most nutrition research is short-term, often inadequately powered, and poorly controlled. We're building nutritional recommendations on a foundation of weak evidence, then acting surprised when findings don't replicate. The problem isn't that scientists are doing bad work intentionally. It's that conducting high-quality nutrition research is extraordinarily difficult with limited funding and practical constraints. Researcher allegiance bias is real and affects outcomes. Scientists who believe strongly in a dietary approach tend to find more positive results than skeptical researchers studying the same intervention. This isn't necessarily fraud. It's that subtle decisions in study design, analysis choices, and interpretation of ambiguous findings all get influenced by what researchers expect or hope to find. A researcher who's written a book promoting intermittent fasting has incentives to interpret data favorably. This doesn't mean their research is worthless, but it means we should weight evidence from skeptical, independent researchers more heavily than evidence from advocates. Funding sources matter too. Industry-funded research, whether from pharmaceutical companies, food companies, or supplement makers, tends to show more favorable results for the funding entity's interests than independently funded research. Again, this isn't always overt fraud. It's that funding influences what questions get asked, what gets published, and how results are interpreted. When you see research funded by a company selling intermittent fasting programs or products, approach the findings with appropriate skepticism. The media exacerbates these problems by reporting every single study as if it's definitive. A small pilot study with weak methodology showing tentative findings becomes "Scientists prove intermittent fasting extends lifespan" in headlines. Then when a larger, better study finds opposite results, the headline is "Everything we knew about intermittent fasting was wrong." This whiplash of contradictory headlines isn't science changing its mind, it's media sensationalizing preliminary findings without appropriate caveats about study limitations and the need for replication. Here's how you, as a consumer of nutrition information, can protect yourself from this chaos. First, never base major dietary decisions on single studies. Wait for replication from multiple independent research teams. Be especially skeptical of the first study showing something exciting. Novel findings often don't replicate because they're statistical flukes, methodological artifacts, or affected by researcher allegiance. Second, look at the totality of evidence, not cherry-picked studies. Meta-analyses that combine multiple studies provide better evidence than any single trial, though you still need to check whether the included studies were methodologically sound. Third, evaluate study quality, not just results. Was the study randomized and controlled? Was the sample size adequate? How long did it last? Were compliance and outcomes measured objectively or by self-report? Was it pre-registered, meaning researchers committed to their analysis plan before seeing data, reducing opportunities for post-hoc fishing for significant results? Quality matters more than quantity. 10-week studies all showing an effect are less convincing than 2 rigorous studies showing no effect. Fourth, distinguish between statistical significance and clinical significance. A finding can be statistically significant, meaning unlikely due to chance, but clinically meaningless. If intermittent fasting leads to an extra half-pound of weight loss compared to controls, that might reach statistical significance in a large study, but it's not meaningful for your health. Look at effect sizes and ask yourself whether the magnitude of difference matters practically. Fifth, consider whether positive findings might reflect placebo effects, expectancy effects, or demand characteristics rather than true biological effects. People who volunteer for intermittent fasting studies often believe it'll help them. Their expectations can influence subjective outcomes like perceived energy or satisfaction. Even objective outcomes can be affected if expectations change behaviors in unmeasured ways. This is why blinding and control groups matter, though they're difficult in dietary studies where participants obviously know what they're eating. The replication crisis is slowly being addressed through better practices, study pre-registration, open data sharing, registered reports where journals accept studies based on methods before results are known, collaborative multi-site studies with larger samples, and greater transparency about conflicts of interest. But progress is slow, and for now, nutrition science remains messy, contradictory, and frustrating to navigate. The honest answer to many nutrition questions is we don't know for certain yet, which doesn't sell books or get clicks, but is often the most accurate statement available. For intermittent fasting specifically, the current evidence suggests modest benefits for weight loss in free living conditions, likely due to helping people restrict calories, with minimal unique metabolic advantages beyond calorie restriction when intake is controlled. Some people find it sustainable and helpful, others don't. It's probably safe for most healthy adults with some cautions for women, athletes, and people with certain medical conditions or eating disorder histories. But we need much more long-term research with better methodology before we can make confident claims about optimal protocols or long-term safety and efficacy. That's not satisfying, but it's honest, and honesty is what you deserve when making decisions about your health. Stay skeptical, demand good evidence, and don't let contradictory headlines make you feel like nutrition is impossible to navigate. It's difficult, but with critical thinking skills and appropriate skepticism, you can make reasonable decisions despite imperfect information.